Story. One long paragraph. He had always believed money could fix anything, and for most of his life, that belief seemed justified. Ethan Cole, the tech millionaire with the glass-walled penthouse overlooking Manhattan, used to think emotions were luxuries people indulged in when they didn't have enough work to do. His mother, Eleanor, had been the exception, kind, soft-spoken, always smelling faintly of vanilla and old books. But when Alzheimer's took her memories piece by piece, Ethan buried himself in work instead of facing the slow fading of the woman who once held his hand through thunderstorms. That's why when his assistant arranged for a live-in caregiver, he didn't pay much attention beyond the necessary paperwork. He barely noticed the woman's name, Grace Turner. He didn't think about what it meant for someone to devote their life to caring for another. That changed the night he got the call at 2:47 a.m., a neighbor reporting shouting, a commotion, something wrong at his mother's modest suburban home. So he drove through the darkness with panic clawing through his ribs, rehearsing apologies for not visiting sooner, not calling enough, not being there. When he burst through the front door, heart hammering, he saw Grace, mid-30s, strong-postured, black, with eyes full of focus and compassion, standing like a guardian between Eleanor and two confused police officers who had responded to an alert. Eleanor was agitated, frightened, clutching an old photograph of Ethan as a child. Grace was speaking gently, explaining Alzheimer's, keeping Eleanor calm while at the same time shielding her from being overwhelmed. Ethan froze, watching this woman he'd barely acknowledged acting as if Eleanor were her own mother. And then Eleanor, who sometimes didn't recognize Ethan at all, leaned into Grace's shoulder and whispered, "My daughter," with such aching tenderness that it shattered him. Ethan expected to feel territorial, offended, but instead he felt small, like a child who'd left someone else to carry his responsibilities. Over the next days, he stayed to observe, intending at first to assess Grace professionally, but soon finding himself watching something he didn't understand, the daily miracle of patience. Grace would guide Eleanor through routines, breakfast, walks, memories, like old postcards drifting by. And whenever Eleanor forgot, Grace never corrected harshly, only entered her world. Ethan noticed the tenderness, the humor, the songs hummed in the kitchen, the quiet dignity afforded to a woman whose mind betrayed her. It baffled him why someone would do this with such devotion for a stranger. And the more he watched, the more he saw the cracks in his own armor. One afternoon, Eleanor confused Ethan with his late father and wept, apologizing for him working too hard and missing birthdays. Ethan stepped out to hide his tears, and Grace followed him to the porch. "Alzheimer's doesn't erase love," she said softly. "It just scrambles how it shows up." Her voice carried a weariness that hinted at buried grief. As days became weeks, Ethan visited more, working less, cooking dinner with Grace, laughing awkwardly when he burned toast, rediscovering the warmth of family he thought he'd outgrown. But the Shattered peace, when a cousin he barely spoke to called with accusations. "You know that Nanny? She's after the inheritance. People talk." Old prejudices, whispered gossip, and the ugly shadow of suspicion creeped into Ethan's mind. His instinctive mistrust grew when he discovered Grace had once filed bankruptcy and had a sealed juvenile record. One stormy night, fueled by doubt, he confronted her, his voice sharper than he intended, asking why she cared so much, what she wanted from them. The hurt in her eyes was like glass breaking. Grace revealed the truth quietly. Years ago, her mother had Alzheimer's too. They couldn't afford proper care, so Grace worked triple shifts to keep her at home. Still, one night her mother wandered out and was struck by a car. Grace arrived too late. Since then, she had devoted her life to making sure no one else faced that kind of loss. She'd taken the job with Eleanor because the agency said the family rarely visited, and Grace believed every elder deserved someone who stayed. Her bankruptcy? Medical bills from her mother. The sealed record? A teenage shoplifting mistake when she was homeless. She didn't ask for pity, only trust. Ethan felt shame burn through him as he realized he'd judged the one person who'd shown his mother unconditional love. He apologized, but instead of accepting immediately, Grace said, "Your mother needs presents more than apologies." So Ethan began showing up, really showing up. He read to Eleanor, danced with her in the living room, and listened to her fragmented stories as if they were maps to lost treasures. Slowly, Eleanor began calling Ethan my boy again, even if she sometimes thought he was still 6. The house filled with laughter that echoed like second chances. But another twist came when the doctor revealed Eleanor's decline had accelerated. The end was near. Not days, but not many months. Grief crept into every quiet moment. One evening, Eleanor looked at Grace and said, perfectly lucid for the first time in weeks, "Your family." They all cried together, three souls bound by fragile time. Ethan decided then he would convert part of his business profits into a foundation supporting Alzheimer's caregivers, starting with better pay and mental health support. He offered Grace a leadership role. She hesitated, saying she didn't want to abandon Eleanor, and that's when Ethan finally said the words he had always avoided. "You're not an employee, you're part of us. Stay as long as you want." When Eleanor passed peacefully, holding both their hands, the house filled with silence and sunlight, the kind that hurts and heals at the same time. At the small memorial, Ethan spoke not about money or success, but about love disguised as ordinary labor. He credited Grace with teaching him that the real wealth in life isn't counted in dollars, but in how fiercely we protect the vulnerable. Afterward, they built the foundation together, traveling the country, telling Eleanor's story, changing policies, erasing stigma, giving caregivers dignity. Critics said a millionaire would never understand, but Ethan did now, and Grace knew he meant it. Over time, their bond grew from friendship into something deeper. Not rushed, not dramatic, just two hearts that had already stood together in the fire. And whenever someone asked Ethan why a woman who started as his mother's nanny mattered so much to him, he would smile and say, "Because when I was lost, she protected what I should have been protecting all along." And that, more than any fortune, became the legacy Eleanor left behind. A reminder that sometimes strangers become family, and love shows up wearing scrubs, patience, and unbreakable kindness.